In this next chapter, titled People You Serve and Care For, Dr. Janowitz explains to us how our health condition affects our interactions with others. This statement could not be more true, Dr. Janowitz. Talk to us about this inner circle and outer circle that you mention in the book. You say that it includes our significant other, our children, our close friends. What does that mean exactly?
Sure. Well, it's funny. I remember that one movie that talks about the circle of trust, right? Mm-hmm. That was that Ben Stiller movie, Meet the Fockers, right? So it's a circle of trust. So you have your inner circle. You have, of course, your significant other, right? Many listeners of this have families, perhaps. So then you have your children, and then of course you have your friends. So that's, to me, is your inner circle. You know, you're maybe like 3 to 5 really close friends as well. So that's your inner circle. Then of course your outer circle is, you know, your people you work with, like your work life. Part of them, of course, could be your inner circle, but you know, by and large, your coworkers, your managers, the customers that you have, right, is another part of that. So you have the outer circle, and then there's other associates that you hang out with, acquaintances and stuff. And so to me, this really creates leverage, because when I look at this, I say, okay, not only do I want to be healthy for myself, but I want to be healthy for those that I serve and those who I care for, especially in my inner circle first, right? And so I'm being selfish in regards that I want to be healthy for them. And so, you know, if given the opportunity to work out or not work out, or to pick the most nutritionally supportive food or not supportive food, if it's just about me, I'm not always going to do it. When that alarm clock wakes up there at 4:50 in the morning, I'm not really motivated to jump out of bed. As much as I would say that I was, the knee-jerk response is not going to be that way. But I know that if I have a full day of clients to serve, of patients to take care of, or, you know, I'm an older father, so we had our last child when I was 45, so it's a little bit older in life. Well, I know that I want to be healthy, not just for him as a 2-year-old at the time of this filming, but I want to see him at his wedding. I want to play with his children. So I look at things and say, hey, I want to be healthy not only for me, but I want to be healthy for my children.
Sure.
So I will do so many different activities when I think about them, as I'm sure most everybody does. But I want what I'm encouraging people to do is to become really intentional about taking steps to be healthy, not just for us, but be intentional and knowing your why. It's part of your why about those people that you love and you care for. I mean, when I took an oath to marry my wife, right? When we all took our vows, you know, I want to be the best version of me for her, because she deserves that. So I will do all those things just like I will with my kids, but first and foremost for my wife. And then, of course, for my friends. I want to be that good support system for my family, for the people who I hang out with, my close friends as well. And, you know, it's interesting, I talked about in the last segment to look at areas of your life, say your healthcare team or the people you associate with, or even your friends, and to say, okay, put a positive next to them. Are they a positive influence in your life, or a negative influence in your life, right? And then try to work on eliminating the negatives and add more positives into your life, and that'll increase the quality of your life. Well, this is also a good time to take that question in reverse and then say, so if someone was to put my name on their list, and that's the first question you want to say, is like, how many people have your name on their list that you're part of their inner circle? Or
as a positive.
Well, first, you're right, but first, did you even make the list?
Oh, okay.
Did you make the cut? Like, how many people would say that you're a mentor or you're a leader in their life in some aspect? You know, you're a very spiritually grounded person, and you know, people are inspired by that, and with your modeling career, people are inspired by that. So you would be on a lot of people's lists in different ways of who you are as a person.
I hope so.
You are. You're on one of my lists, so you're an inspiration to me as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then, but how many people would you be on that list of their inner circle, which is a blessing, right? And then, to the second point of your question, would they put a positive or a negative sign next to your name? And so that really lends to the accountability as well, and how are we managing our inner circle and how are we managing other people's inner circle that we may be in, right? So that gives your highest leverage point is your inner circle. And then of course, as you expand out there to your work life or the rest of your world life, right? Then that's your next level of, hey, how do you show up? And so that will give you that accountability. So when I think about the people group, the first one being our mentors and our leaders and our coaches and all those, that's where we learn a lot of the processes. But then when we think about the people that we care and serve for, that becomes how do we put those things into action when we talk about process. But it's clear to define those groups.
You know, in today's society, everyone's being pulled in so many different directions between family and children and
That's right.
work. And so between the inner and the outer circle, we do have a lot of people who we have to reserve energy for. And as you mentioned, the inner circle will demand the most energy from us at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day.
That's right. That's right.
And so it's important for us to maintain that energy.
That's right.
Even after we've served our outer circle and how to return to the inner circle, which can be challenging.
That's right.
But you talk about how managing our health and keeping your health at a prime functioning level affects those interactions. How does it affect those interactions specifically?
Absolutely. So I'll just give you an example. So in my practice, we see patients very early in the morning. So we have a 6:45 patient, and then we have a 6 o'clock patient, and well over 100 patients in between. And my philosophy with how I approach care in my practice is I always wanted that 6:45 patient to have great energy, have me fully present, fully engaged in them getting well. And I wanted that same energy to transfer to that 6 p.m. patient at the end of the day. Well, that takes a lot of intention. And so when we talk about process, you have to find ways to rest and recover, to hydrate, to nourish yourself emotionally, physically, chemically, spiritually. You have to fuel those ways to run that marathon. And then after you give it all a day of work, I mean, I'll work a 13-hour day, and then I know when I come home, one of my favorite moments of the day is when my kids run to me to give me that hug, and I want to be fully present to them and have more in the tank. Well, you can't do that if you're not managing your health, and that's why, again, the first book I wrote was the Synergy Health Solution, because you have to manage your health and make that the priority first so that you can create the foundation for everything else.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And anyone who's suffered from health issues and then recovered and experienced being healthy again understands the difference between your personal output. I know you and I can relate to that, and my functioning level is completely different when I have felt ill versus feeling healthy.
That's right.
And the outcome of feeling healthy and being able to serve the people around me really encourages me to, you know, to fight for that continued health.
That's right. That's awesome. Excellent.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Synergy Health Solution. In these next few minutes, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Janowitz about setting health standards for ourselves and how to make better habits.
Awesome.
Tell us, Dr. Janowitz, how can we create better habits, and what is people's quality of life based on, really?
Sure. Well, I believe that the quality of somebody's life is based upon the quality of standards that they choose to live in that particular area. So when we talk about health, it all becomes a standard. And one thing I've learned in some of the coaching is one of the worst places to live in is in this state of what's called toleration, where you just accept for how things are, and that's how they're supposed to be. And so a lot of people tend to equate, what's common in their life, and this is where the trick, where the trap happens, is they tend to equate what's common in their life as normal. So, I wake up and I have this certain energy level. I'm always like, a good 7. And it's okay, it's not a 10, but it's not a 4. And this is what I go through with my life, or I have this pain and I'm always have this way, and it's, my common headache that I get, or my common knee issue, or common digestive issue. And we start to accept that as our standard, and then when we accept it as our standard of living, then we don't take any action to make a change, because that is our standard. Or many of us have been in relationships that were not very high standard in our life to what we have now, and very disempowering, and then we discover that, right? And then maybe we make a change, but you don't make that change until you see that your standard is being rubbed the wrong way. And so the quality of your life is based upon the quality of standards that you choose, which is the minimal acceptable return in that area of your life. And so how you make that change is the moment that you decide that that standard is no longer your standard. It's when you have a change in your power, in your value, in your values, and in your value for yourself, that your standards change, and you say, that's it, never again, this isn't who I am. And the moment you change, it changes. So there's a lot of talk about habit forming, like, it takes, some books say, and some research says it takes 21 days of doing something to form a habit, or it takes 60 days of doing this to form a habit. And although there is a time factor, I believe the underlying psychology behind it is a standard issue. How you make a change in a habit is you say, this is who I am now, this is the core of what I believe, and then this is the standard to which I'm going to choose life. And so when you make that shift, which is a value and a power shift, it becomes a standard shift. And we could talk about this really anywhere in the process of the synergy success cycle. It really blends in power, it blends in purpose, the standard of your values, the standard of your vision. It can talk about the standard of the people. We talk about it surrounding yourself with the top 5 people in your life, or who's on your mentor bench or your healthcare accountability team. What's the standard for that? But it really blends well with process, because the standard to which you execute your actions in your life is going to really dictate those habits, which is going to dictate the results that you have in life.
You have a quote in your book that says, high standards create high results. High standards create consistent results.
That's right, because when you have that, it becomes consistent, because that's your baseline. So if you're operating at this level of your health, you have to understand that you're operating at that level because you have a standard that is acceptable. And the moment you see it as a different way, and that's where a health leader or a really good healthcare coach, I would say that my gift is to help people become aware of where they presently are at with their health, see it for how it is, not see it worse, but get reality as to what their current situation is, what's going to happen, and then paint a picture of what's going to happen in the future if they don't do anything about that. But then even more importantly than that, Jenny, is to then say, what if you can live a life like this? What if you can have this? What if this can occur? Well, all I'm doing is I'm elevating their standard, and then getting them to believe in that standard, and then to create that as their new floor of where they want to be. And once they do that, their health just automatically changes, not just in one area, but in every area. It's so cool.
As I'm hearing you speak, I have this vision of you literally handing someone a key to unlock another door.
Yes.
People they don't always set the standards. They kind of, like you said, accept them. Maybe because they were taught that that's all they were worth having.
That's right.
Or because that's what their life experience has been.
Yeah, so true.
But it's really just a mindset. It's a conscious decision to change the standards. I mean, it's really a simple concept. It's not a common one, but it's a simple one if you really just sit and think about it.
That's right.
And so you're giving them the key to unlock another door. This is amazing.
And you know, a lot of times someone has to get to the low to
Yes.
really see that. And you know, so it's like, you know, why does God give us the bad times and the good times? Well, sometimes the bad times can serve as a very big value clarification, and it can also serve as a springboard to say, hey, this is not the life I wanted to live. I deserve so much more. So frustrations lead to breakthroughs, and frustrations can lead to setting a new standard. You know, I was in a relationship before my wife, and I was accepting that standard of that relationship. I knew that subconsciously it wasn't the best relationship for my potential. And it's not that she was a bad person; it just was an incompatibility. Great person. However, it wasn't until I took her to my parents and we had my father's 65th birthday, and then she interacted with them, and then I saw that it didn't work, and I saw that it was very incongruent. It was at that point that I had that clarification that this is not the standard of what I wanted for my relationship, and frankly, it wasn't the best for her. So it was at that time to free the relationship up to where she can find the person that's best for her, and I can find the best person, which by the grace of God met my wife shortly after, because I had a standard shift. So when you shift your standard, not only do your processes change, but who you attract changes very dramatically too. Yeah.
You talk about the sigmoid curve. I think people are used to hearing this more on a maybe mathematical level.
Sure.
How does this apply to our health standards?
Sure. So it's also used, the sigmoid curve talks about things like in business too, as well. So what it essentially describes is that when you start something, you make a decision to do something, you might say at this point of being in a decision, this is where you decide. Well, when you decide to do something, you start working on that, you don't immediately just grow from that. You actually typically have a dip, and that dip is that learning curve. And so you're going to have moments of pain where you're like, I'm really bad at this thing, right? It's like when you start learning to exercise and you're going to go, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to run a marathon. Well, you're probably going to botch it at the very beginning, right? Or try to eat well, you're going to botch it. So you're going to have this downswing. Now, this is where a lot of people can drop off. And so if they don't have a standard to remind them, or their purpose or their vision or their goals, or people to support them, they're going to drop off at that stage, but they're going to come down. But then if they just hang in there, and I want to encourage the listeners, whatever you're going through with your health, hang in there. Don't give up, because you get through that dip that is a natural process. Don't have judgment to it, but just know that it's part of the process. And then you'll go up. And as you go up, you start becoming much more competent on that. And we'll talk about that later on with the journey of learning, but you'll get better at this thing. And you'll get success, and you'll start to see successes become even easier and more profound as you go through this in your health and in areas of your life. But then the other part of the sigmoid curve says that if you don't continue to make change and improvement, that you'll start to get complacent. And when you get complacency sets in, then you'll start to dip down. So there's an initial dip at the beginning of the sigmoid curve when you're learning a process. Then you got that great improvement that everybody loves. But then if you don't pay attention, you're going to get another dip. And then you can go down in a negative way again. And so it's at that stage when complacency sets in, the key to this thing is to create a new curve. It's to create another curve to say, I got to learn something here to take me to the next level, and understand that when I learn that again, I'm actually going to dip again. And it's really hard for a lot of achievers, and most people that are listening to this are achiever mindsets. It's hard for an achiever to have failure and setback and realize that everything new that you learn, you're going to have initial failure and setback. The key is, again, if you hire coaches or be around people, you want to shorten that time period, right? Shorten the pain, but there's going to be a little bit of pain in making change.
Growing pains, right?
Growing pains is such a true thing in life. So you're going to have that. So how do we shorten that at the beginning? But then also, how do we systematically put in a new curve. And a lot of people who are successful fade into the sunset because they fail to create that next curve, that next mountain to climb, right? Yeah.
Which is often presented to us through life anyway. So if you need a reminder, just look around you.
So true. Life is the greatest teacher, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.